Hello, Liz, can you hear me right now?
I can, Nancy, and I think our attendees can too.
Okay, great. This is Nancy Pinkerton, and I'm with Socius, and we are presenting a Fastpath webinar today. Liz Giancarli is the presenter, and Fastpath offers a really great auditing trails application as well as security and some compliance modules. And they've been doing it a long time. They have auditors that help develop their software. And Liz will probably tell you this. I don't want to rain on her parade, but she was one of the first users of Fastpath and then ended up working for the vendor because she thinks so much of the product. I've known her a long time, and they're just a great vendor to work with. So looks like, Myra, you may be our only attendee right now, but we might wait a few more minutes and see if we get a couple more, and then we'll get started. If you have any questions, since you are in mute only, or mute, just pop a question in the box, and I will get back to you, okay? Thanks, and let's just hold on a minute. Well, I have straight up noon, and I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've had several more join us, and so I'll just reiterate. I am Nancy Pinkerton. I'm one of the account managers with Socius, and we have Liz Giancarli with Fastpath today, who's going to present the audit trails as well as several other modules that Fastpath offers. It's a great vendor and a really great product. At one time, Microsoft did offer a GP audit trails, but it has since gone back to that vendor, and I think it just was not, it did not end up being robust enough. And Fastpath offers really probably one of the best audit tools there is for GP. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and pass it over to Liz. If anyone has questions, please pop it into the box on the screen, and I will respond. We've got a small group today, so we can probably even, stop intermittently and see if Liz can answer some questions if they are applicable. So with that, Liz, will you take over?
Sure. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. So like Nancy said, my name is Liz Giancarli. I'm the Director of Dynamics GP Sales over at Fastpath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by telling you a little bit about who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to go into the products. I'm not going to go into a really in-depth look at the products. I'm going to keep it at a higher level. But I will tell you at any point, if there are questions, like Nancy mentioned, please type them in. And, if it's appropriate for her to stop me and ask the question at that time, I can go ahead and address any questions you might have. And if not, we'll have time at the end for a question and answer session. If at any time there are, the tools interest you and you would like to see more about them or hear more about them, Nancy can definitely work with you to get a personalized demo set up of the tools, and you can invite other people from your organization if you see something that you like. A little bit about us. So we are a security audit and compliance software company. That is all that we do. We don't do any ERP consulting or anything like that. We leave that to our partners like Socius, who do a much better job than we would ever do. We were founded in 2004, so we're really happy to be celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. Our headquarters are in cold Des Moines, Iowa. we are Microsoft Gold Competency, ISV, and ERP, and we have CPAs and certified internal auditors on staff. So we're not just a bunch of engineers and developers making products. What we are is a bunch of auditors and accountants and people that are really interested in security and compliance and audit, making products to fulfill needs based on business processes and not just you know, technical specifications, etc. So we really put a lot of work into our tools as far as making sure that we're following the latest accounting standards, etc. We participate with the Institute of Internal Auditors to make sure that we're always you know, up to date on best practices, etc. We have over 600 customers. We have installs across 30 countries. You see here some of our more, I guess, recognizable customers, I guess you can say. But, you know, the interesting thing to note is that these customers run the gamut of the type of industries, you know, manufacturing, retail, web-based services, etc. So we don't have a specific client type. We don't have a specific client profile. Security, audit, and compliance really doesn't depend on the type of industry you're in. It really doesn't depend on the size of company you have. It's really a concern for everybody out there. We have some audit partners that we work with. We like to show this slide because it makes us really happy that we have their endorsement and their stamp of approval. They recommend our products to their clients, etc. So that's always nice to see. And the tools that we're going to be going through today, we have a couple of different tools for Dynamics GP. Now, just to clarify, this isn't a suite of tools. You don't have to purchase the whole enchilada. These tools are each sold individually. So if only one of the tools suits your needs, that's all you need to look at. You don't have to, you know, buy software that is going to be unnecessary for your organization just to get the piece of software that you think will be necessary. The first tool we have is Assure. It's a risk-based security access review and segregation of duties analysis platform. I like to call it my one-stop shop for everything Dynamics GP security related. You can run Dynamics GP security reports out of this module without having to be in Dynamics GP. They are much more concise than a typical Dynamics GP security report. They're much easier to read and much easier to handle. This tool can tell you who has access to the different pieces of your system. So if you've ever wanted to see who has access to something like vendor maintenance, in GP, you know, it can be a little bit of a cumbersome task. You have to figure out, okay, well, I know the window name is called vendor maintenance, but I have to see what tasks have that window attached to it, and then what roles have those tasks attached to them, and then what users have those roles that have the tasks that have the window attached to them. So it could be a little bit cumbersome. Ours is a very quick and easy way of seeing who has access to the different pieces of the system. And then finally, the biggest benefit of the Assure tool is we can take a user and break down their security window by window and tell you based on the security that's been granted to them where the risks are in your organization. So for example, if a user has access to vendor maintenance and they have access to payables transaction entry, technically that's a risk. You know, the reason it's a risk is they, you know, could create a dummy vendor and enter an invoice to that vendor and have it be paid without any kind of reviews going on. Now, it's not a preventive tool. It doesn't stop anybody from doing their job. However, it allows you to determine, first of all, whether or not that access is appropriate. If it isn't appropriate, then you need to change it. If it is appropriate, then it allows you to determine how you're mitigating that risk in your system, and you can document those mitigations for those risks so that when you're going through and your auditors are in, you know, talking to you about your software setups and you know, any risks that you may be exposing yourself to, you can say, yes, we fully reviewed them. Here they are. As far as the ERP system is concerned, and this is what we're doing to mitigate these risks. And then they can test to make sure those mitigations are appropriate, etc. The audit trail tool, continuous monitoring solution that tracks all changes to critical data. You determine what's critical, and when I say that, it's really down to a very granular level. You can determine what it is that you need to audit. So, for example, I'm going to go back to my vendor maintenance as an example. Vendors are changing in the system. GP really doesn't have a good way to tell you what's changed on that vendor. They can tell you, there's some columns in the vendor maintenance table that tells you the last time it was modified and maybe the last user that modified that record, but it doesn't tell you what fields were modified. Okay? So our audit trail tool can tell you that. It can tell you what was changed, who changed it, what the value was before it was changed, what the value was changed to. Okay? And you can determine based on what your needs are how granular you want to get. So for example, if we talk about that vendor card, if you look at a vendor card in GP, there are literally hundreds of fields on that vendor card, just from the first page to the options tab to the accounts tab to the address tab, etc. So if you want to track all of those fields, you absolutely can. However, you're going to find that some of those fields are probably really not business critical to be tracked. If somebody changes a vendor's birthday in the system because birthday is an available field, is that really going to create any havoc in your business? Probably not. However, if that check name is changing, I can guarantee that you're going to want to have some scrutiny over what that check name is being changed to. Because if it's just being changed from Socius to Socius Inc., it's one story. But if it's being changed from Socius to Great Aunt Edna, somebody's going to want to take a look at that. Okay? So we, in order to do all that, you want to just make sure that, when you're doing the audit trails, you're really concentrating on the key fields that are going to impact your business. And we're going to talk a little bit more when we look at the audit trail product about the ease of use of our tool, how quickly we can get it set up and running in an environment, some of the tools we have to allow setup to be done very quickly, etc. Okay. Both Assure and Audit Trail each come with their own inherent sets of reports that can be generated and printed and exported to about 8 different file types. However, if you want those reports from within those two systems to go out to specific users automatically, you want those users to receive them in their inbox, daily, weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, etc. You can use the Audit View tool to go ahead and create those schedules and have those reports assigned to be delivered to specific users on a scheduled basis so that they don't have to log in and generate the reports themselves. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And then finally, the last tool we have is our Config AD tool. This tool allows you to maintain user provisioning in Active Directory instead of the target system. This is what we like to call our single sign-on tool for Dynamics GP. So for those of you out there who are tired of having to remember a separate user ID and password for GP, or maybe you're the GP admin who's tired of resetting somebody's GP user ID because they've forgotten it, because they don't use it that often, or maybe they've changed their Windows ID and for some reason thought that their GP ID had changed, or GP password had changed as well, and they're keying in that new password and they lock themselves out, and you're getting these calls about having to unlock them. This will handle all of that. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that product and more in depth as well. So that's just a quick overview of who we are and what we do. You can reach us at, I can be reached at liz@gofastpath.com. Nancy can always contact me. You can follow us on Twitter at gofastpath.com. We always have some great information. And I do want to throw out one more thing. We are holding what we call a GRC Day, a Governance, Risk, and Compliance Day. For any of you that are going to Atlanta to Convergence, we're actually holding a seminar the day before Convergence starts on that Monday in Atlanta. You can get more information at www.dynamicsaudit.com. I can also have Nancy send out the information in email. It is just going to be a meeting with speakers and presentations from different audit firms, and we're going to be talking about compliance and security and risk and all that good stuff. And for Socius customers, we'll give you a coupon code for $100 off the registration fee, and that also does entitle you to CPE credit. So I'm going to send all that information to Nancy, and she'll get it out to you guys for you to have information about our GRC day. So that's my quick little plug before we get into looking at the software. So I'm going to start with Config AD. Even though that was the last product in my list, that's going to be the first one that I show you, just because it's actually a pretty quick and easy product to show. I'm going to double click here on my Active Directory Users and Computers console, and when I do that, what you're going to notice here is if I right click on any one of these users, I am now going to have a menu item that says Configure Dynamics User. And when I click on that, it's going to call my Config AD software, and so I can go ahead and launch it. And I know some of you are already saying, oh wow, that's really cool, but there is no way in heck that my GP admin or whoever's setting up their GP users is ever going to get access to the Active Directory Users and Computers console. That's strictly my network engineer's domain, and I don't want my GP person in there at all. Okay, point taken. We understand that. We understand that there's sometimes there can be a lot of segregation between who's setting up GP users and who's actually handling Active Directory in the network. So what we have done is we've given you an alternate way of getting to the software. It's called the Config AD Desktop. The Config AD Desktop works exactly the same way as if you were going through the Active Directory Users and Computers. You open this up, you put your domain in here, you click Find, and it will return every user that exists on that domain. So if we were to look back at the Active Directory list of users here, this list is exactly the same. And you'll see we're only seeing the name, the logon name, and the description. We're not seeing any passwords. We can't make changes to anything in Active Directory at all. This is just reading those names. And if you were then to click on Configure Dynamics User, it's going to call the Config AD software just like it did from the Active Directory Users and Computers console. Okay, so just two different ways of getting to the software, depending on how you want to deploy this in your organization. Okay, once you have launched the software, okay, this is where you would set up users. And you'll notice now that if you were to log into GP, you pretty much have the same types of settings. You know, you create the user, you give access to the company, and then you give access to the roles within the company. The only difference is that in GP, you're going to click on 3 different windows, and you're going to enter that system password 3 different times, etc. This is all done in one screen. Okay, so I'm going to delete Cindy here, and I'm going to create her from scratch. And so it's very, very simple to set up a new GP user. What we would do is we just click this little icon. It's a little yellow head with a green shirt. It's going to go ahead and create the underlying SQL user, because unfortunately Microsoft does still require that SQL user to exist at a database level. Okay, we're going to set the login type. There are 3 different login types available. The first is single sign-on. Single sign-on is what we consider, you know, a true single sign-on, where when you set a user to be single sign-on, they click on their GP icon, it will go ahead and populate their user ID, and it will go ahead and populate their password for them. There's no key punching required on their part. As long as they're authenticated, it will log them directly into GP. Okay? So they wouldn't have to do, it would require 0 input. Now if their password got reset, let's say that the Windows password policy came up and their password expired and they had to change it, when they would log on to GP, GP would require them to key that new password in, okay, to re-authenticate that first time, and then the next time they launch GP, it would have remembered it and they won't have to key it in again until the next time that password changes. Okay. Single sign-on password required. This is just an extra level of security. So now when you click the GP icon, you won't have to enter in your username. It's going to default to your Windows ID. You will have to enter your Windows password to log into GP. The reason why we've given you this option is, let's say, for example, you have access to sensitive information in GP. Maybe you're an HR payroll coordinator and you have access to salaries, benefits, social security numbers, etc. You don't want to come to the office in the morning, log into your computer, and go get a cup of coffee and step away from your desk. And in the meantime, for somebody else to come to your desk, double-click GP, run a smart list of all the salary and benefit and social security number information that's in your GP system, close GP, and no one is the wiser. Okay, you want to add an extra level of protection. So you want to make that password required so that whoever's clicking on that GP icon is going to need to know your Windows password before they can get into GP. Okay, and then finally, the last login type is standard. Now this wouldn't be as commonly used. This would be more for an administrative type of user. And what the standard login type does is it allows you to log in with your Windows authentication, so your Windows ID and your Windows password, or you can log in with a SQL user ID and SQL password. So if you need to log in as SA with the SA password or as DynSA with the DynSA password, you can absolutely go ahead and do that with the standard login type. Okay. So that's the 3 different login types. We'll set Cindy to single sign-on. Once we do that, we can say what companies Cindy should have access to within Dynamics GP. Okay, so we can do select all down here or unselect all. If we select a default, it would automatically log her into the company that was selected as a default. That you can always change companies once you're in GP. It just saves an extra step at the login time. Okay, so we can click default here. And then from here, we can assign what roles Cindy should have access to based on the companies that she has access to. So the first thing we have to do is select an alternate modified Windows and Forms profile, Windows and Reports profile, and then we can give Cindy access. And we're going to make her the AP clerk. Okay? And then we can always copy that access over to her other company. So we can click OK here, and it's just going to confirm that we want to copy security from Chicago Cubs to the Fabricam company, and we say yes. And so now these roles are being read from directly within GP. Okay, so we're using out-of-the-box roles. If you have custom roles, you'll see them all here. Okay, anything that you've got set up as a role in GP will show up in this window. This, however, I always like to point this out. This is a GP user configuration product. Okay, we're only configuring security for users within this product. We're not changing the underlying GP security as far as we cannot modify a role, we can't add a role, we can't delete a role, we can't do anything to the roles. So let's say, for example, I wanted to add a new role called, AR manager. I cannot do that from here. I have to go into GP and log in to GP with the correct credentials to create a role called AR Manager and give it all the specific access that it needs. And then the next time that I log into Config AD, I will see that role in my list. Okay? So just want to point that out. Now, let's say, for example, you already have your users set up in GP. Do you need to recreate them all? No, you don't. Okay. What you would do is, we're just going to go ahead and save this, is when we're setting up the user, when we log in to Config AD and we've selected a user that already exists in GP, the only thing we would have to do is associate them to their current GP account. So let me pick another user so I can show you as an example. I will pick David Beckham here. While David Beckham is not busy bringing soccer to Miami, he is actually also working for us here at Fabricam. And so David Beckham is already a GP user, okay? And so if we do this little drop down here where it says user ID, we can find in this list of users his user ID in GP, and it's David D. Beckham. Okay, and then the only thing we would have to do is click this little checkbox, and it's going to confirm that we want to associate Windows user ID D Beckham to GP user ID D Beckham. Okay, so we can go ahead and do that. So actually, I'll disassociate him just so that we can see what it looks like when we do associate him. So I'm going to go ahead and reassociate him now. and it's just going to confirm, are you sure you want to associate Windows User ID D Beckham with Dynamics GP User ID D Beckham? And we're going to go ahead and click yes. And when we do that, everything that he has access to in GP is going to get copied over. Okay, so he's a customer service rep and an order processor, so that all got copied over. Now, with this being said, okay, there is a strict one-to-one relationship between a GP user ID and a Windows user ID. You cannot associate one GP user ID to multiple Windows IDs. So if there's any kind of shared user IDs that you guys have set up that are being shared by multiple people, okay, we don't recommend having that type of structure in your system anyways, because that's too much anonymity. So for example, I've been to clients where we see that they set up users called AP Entry Clerk or something like that, or AP Entry 1 and AP Entry 2, and maybe they have a team that rotates using them, and so maybe 3 people know the AP Entry password. Okay, we don't recommend that, because then when you want to find out who's making changes, it could be one of 3 people. So it's a strict one-to-one ratio between a GP user ID and a Windows user ID, and vice versa. Okay, so you want to get in the habit of not having anonymous IDs anymore. You want to get in the habit of having named IDs so that you're associating them to one single person, and only that person has that login capability, so that when you're tracking changes in the system, it makes it much easier for you. Okay. Really quickly, I want to take you through some of the additional features of the ConfigID tool. The first one is a disable delete feature. What this means is if you disable or delete the user in Active Directory, it will automatically disable or delete the user in GP. Why is that important? Well, in GP, you might have users that are still set up in the system, and they haven't been with the company for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And they're not showing up on a list of people that have access to the network or a list of employees, and your auditors are gonna tell you that's a no-no. They're gonna say that the reason why that's an issue is because with the way that GP user IDs and passwords work, without the ConfigID tool, they're really not linked to anything. So let's say Gary was a GP user and he's left the company. Somebody might know Gary's user ID and password, okay? And because it's not linked to a Windows user ID and password, it's not expired or anything like that, and somebody can be logging in as Gary and no one is the wiser. Okay, so that's why it's very important to make sure that you're linking your users together, and then if they're leaving the organization, when you're deleting them in Active Directory, they're also getting deleted out of GP. Okay, the next option is an auto logout feature. Okay, so right now, as you all know, GP has no auto logout function whatsoever. If you've ever tried to do maintenance on the system on a weekend or in the evening and it tells you that people are still logged in and you have to log them out, this will kind of alleviate that pain point for you. It will not log you out if you're in the middle of processing a large batch or a large report, or if there's any kind of SQL processing going on in the background, it will not log you out. If you're in a screen that requires a user action to close that screen, whether it requires you to hit save or post or delete before it allow you to close that screen, it will not log you out. But if you're just kind of sitting there, you've done what you needed to do for the day, and either you forgot to shut down GP before you left for the day, or you know, you just kind of, you have other things to do and you haven't logged out of GP for a couple of hours, this auto logout feature will take care of that and will log you out of the system. Okay, and then finally the last feature of ConfigID, and even though I got to these features, by the way, I just want to point this out, through an individual user, even though I was in David Beckham's window when I got here, these are global features. Okay, this is not a per user basis, these are global features. The Active Directory group security, what that means is just like we can assign security to an actual individual in GP, we can actually assign security to an Active Directory group. So if we click on a group and right click, we see it says Configure Dynamics Profile. We connect just like we would with a user, and here now we can, as part of the group, we can tell it what login type members of this group should have, what companies members of this group should have access to, and what roles within these companies members of this group should have access to. So what this means now is a new user comes on board. Okay, they can be made part of the AP Clerk Active Directory group, and they will be automatically provisioned with the GP security based on the group settings. So the user will be set up, they'll be added to those companies, and they will be given those roles. So then they can log into GP without anyone having to touch that user individually. And they can belong to more than one group. So let's say a user should be a member of both the AP Clerk group and the AR Clerk group. That's okay. Okay? So that's Config AD. That's our high-level overview. Again, if there's any specific questions in regards to Config AD, we can take them now, or we can wait to the end. And also, if anyone would like to see more about this product, again, after the webinar is over, please feel free to reach out. So I'm just going to check with Nancy really quick to see if we did have any questions come through, and if not, I'm going to move on.
I don't see any, Liz, so
okay.
I think we're good.
Perfect. So I'm going to move on to Audit Trail. And Audit Trail, there's two pieces of Audit Trail. The first is the back end where we actually set up the audits. Okay, and then we can talk about the reports that are generated based on setting up these audits. So if we talk about Audit Trail, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to a database within my SQL Server where GP is installed. I'm just going to connect to a GP company database, and you'll see once I connect, it's going to show me every single table that exists in GP. So basically, I can audit anything. It doesn't matter where it originates from. So if you have third-party products installed, McCormick Micker, McCormick Micker, if you have Nolan Intercompany, if you have Wensoft, if you have, I'm trying to think of some of the more common ones, Easy eBankrec or MC Squared Intercompany or anything like that that adds custom tables, and you want to be able to audit those fields within those third-party products, you absolutely can do so. Okay, you absolutely can do that. So this will show you every single table that exists in GP. It gives you the table name as well as the common name for that table. So if you're not familiar with the way that GP names their tables, we can kind of help you out a little bit as far as what these tables are named. And then once you figure out what it is that you want to audit, let's say I want to audit my checkbook master. I've been having problems with my bank reconciliation. Somebody's been changing my next check numbers. I'm going to go ahead and select that table and select the columns that are appropriate for me within that table. So I've selected the checkbook ID, the duplicate check number field, the next check number field, and the override check number. I can go ahead and do that. Now, if some of you are looking at this and saying, wow, all of this looks Greek to me, and I have no idea where to even begin setting up audits, we completely understand that. Not everybody has an intimate knowledge of the table structure of GP or where information is stored within those tables. So in order to help you guys quickly and easily set up audits, we have templates. So under Tools, if we click on Templates, and based on either the Dynamics database where all your system-specific information is held, such as user security, etc., or a GP company database where your company-specific information is held, we can set up audits very quickly and easily using our templates. So if you see, we have some of the most commonly audited items already available as a template. We have vendor account maintenance, customer account maintenance, AR transactions, credit memos, vendor invoices, finance charges, HR, payroll, opening and closing GL accounts, so on and so forth. And what you would do is you would just select the items that you'd want to inventory, that you would want to audit, and you would click Load, and it would go out for you and automatically find those tables and automatically find the most commonly audited columns within those tables and set them up. Now, you could make changes to that. Those templates are not setting anything into stone. It's just a guide, and then you can add or delete, you can add to or uncheck any columns that were selected if it's auditing too much or too little for you. So just a really quick and easy way of getting those audits set up. The other thing is when you purchase our products, there is an annual maintenance fee that you pay for upgrades and new releases and things like that. But it also includes installation and implementation assistance, support, and training. So therefore, at any point in time, if there's something that you want to audit that we don't have a template for, you can actually just email or call our support team. We'll schedule a time with you to go ahead and get those audits set up, and that's at no cost to you guys. That's all included as part of the product. Okay? So once our audits are set up, we want to see the results of these. So I have some audits set up on my checkbook master, on some of my direct deposit tables, my inventory, my PM vendor master file, so I'm tracking changes to vendors, etc. So once all that's set up in the back end, we go to what we call our GRC Studio. And our GRC Studio is the home to our different audit reporting products. So this is where our audit trail reports are going to live. Now, if you notice, with every single one of my products, not once have I logged into GP at all to be able to use them, to be able to configure them, etc. We don't make any dexterity mods to GP. We don't. We really don't do a lot within the system. We don't use up your GP user licenses or anything like that. It's all external. So we're not putting any performance. We're not really putting any performance loads onto GP or creating any performance impacts by having our software load up with GP. It's all kind of external to GP. Okay. So if I go to the audit trail section here, I can now see all the reports I have available for audit trail. And if I click on my vendor change report and we take a look at this as an example of what the type of information we can see from audit trail, I just backdate it a little bit and hit run report, I can now see the changes that are occurring within the database. So if you notice, it's multi-company. Okay, we don't have to run this report individually for each company. It is aggregating all the companies. I can filter on any one of these columns. If I click on the column header, I will get a little key that shows up and I can filter, so I can just see one company at a time if I want to. Okay, any one of these columns you can filter on. It shows me the vendor ID, the vendor name, the field that was updated, which is the field that was updated, which is strictly just the column name in SQL, and so that way we give you the field name as well, because a lot of times people don't know that you know, ACNMVNDR actually stands for account number with vendor, so we go ahead and tell you that in this field name column. The event type, whether it's an update, a delete, or an add, the old value, the new value, the date, the time, and the user that made that change. Okay, so all the information you need to gather when you're looking at vendor changes to make sure that these changes were appropriate, etc. Again, like I said, you can filter on any one of these columns. So if I just wanted to see Chicago Cubs and I just wanted to see, let's say, updates, I can do multiple filters. You'll see down here at the bottom, my filter bar is showing up and it's telling me exactly what my filters are doing. I can click on the little red X here to clear that filter out. So we have that ability to do that. I can sort on any one of these columns. Again, if I click, my little sort icon is going to come up. Any of my reports I can print, I can export. I have 8 different file types. So I can export it to PDF, I can export it to Excel, etc. I can sign off on these reports electronically. It's going to capture my login ID, it's going to capture the date and the time and the report that I'm signing off on, and I can add notes. So if you need to come in here and review these on any particular basis, you can, and you can electronically sign off, and that record is kept in the home area. There is a report called the signature log, and it's tracking all the reports that were signed off on, who signed them, and the notes that they put when they signed off on them. Okay. Now, I do want to switch focus just for one really quick second. So audit trail, like I said, pretty similar. Every report that you're going to look at is going to have pretty much the same structure. If this was a GL change report, the only difference would be instead of vendor ID, you would have GL account number. you would have the GL account description, and then you would still have the field that was updated, the field name, etc. If it was a customer, you'd have customer ID and customer name, and then the field that was updated, etc. So the structure is all going to be the same. Okay. But I want to just quickly switch gears to my audit view tool to show you kind of how that works in conjunction with Audit Trail. And like I said, it's all very much, Audit View works the same with any single report in the system, whether it be Audit Trail or Assure. So we'll take a look at how it works with Assure as well. But if we click on Add to Schedule, here, this is actually the Audit View tool. And what I can do, I'll click on New Report. I can actually create a schedule for this report to be delivered automatically to people. Okay? I can give it a name, so I can say Daily Vendor Log. And I have a lot of criteria I can use: week, month, quarter, year to date, previous week, month, quarter, year to date. So if I just click on that, I can see that. But this is going to be a daily report, so I'm just going to choose last number of days, and I'm going to put 1. I'm going to click Next. And if I wanted to, I can add a filter. So those filters that I was using, where I was filtering out just a specific company, I could actually save those. And if I look here under Apply Filter, these are some of the saved filters I had. So if I wanted this report to just be for the Cubs database, I could choose my filter that says Cubs only. And now this report will be restricted to just that. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and just click Next. And I'm going to just review this and make sure that this is the right report. So it's the Audit Trail report, it's the vendor change report, and it's going to be for the last number of days equals 1. I'm going to hit Save. And now I'm going to determine who should receive this report and how they should receive it. So I wanted to go in Excel to Cassidy. So I'm going to click that. But I also want to save it out in a folder to PDF, and this could be a network folder. This could be anywhere at all, including a SharePoint folder. I'm going to click Desktop and click Add. So now I have this file going out in Excel to Cassidy via email and being saved on the desktop via PDF. This is a daily report. Okay, so I'm just going to click Daily. And I'm going to have this report start on Monday the 24th, and I'm not going to give it an end date. Click Next. Now I can review my entire schedule that I've set up. I can click Schedule if it all looks good. So it does. Now, if I at any point wanted to delete this report, I could just click the little delete button here. So I'll go ahead and delete a different report just because I have so many of them out there. If I wanted to run this report on demand, I could go ahead and do that by clicking the play button. If at any point in time I needed to change the recipient, okay, so Cassidy is no longer with us, this report should now go to Solberg. I don't have to delete it and start all over. I can just click Edit Schedule. And I can say now the recipient is no longer Cassidy, so I'll delete him, and the recipient should be Solberg in Excel, and I'm going to go ahead and add him. Okay, so then I can click Next and hit Schedule, and now you'll see my schedule has changed. Okay. So that's the Audit View tool. Now we'll flip back really quickly to Audit Trail. And I'm going to just pause here for one quick second to see if anyone has any questions on Audit Trail or Audit View before I move on to Assure.
Well, let me see. I don't see any, but I might give you guys a second to raise your hand and see if we have any questions. I don't see any right now, Liz, so
okay.
We'll just keep on trucking.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to move on to the Assure section. And so the Assure tool, this is what I was talking about as the one-stop shop for GP security, being able to see segregation of duties, being able to see who has access to the different pieces of your system. And so you'll notice here under the reports, we have a whole bunch of reports as far as security. We have a company access matrix, which will show you who has access to the different companies in GP. We have a role matrix, which will show you who has who has access to the different roles in GP. But we also have GP role access, which is going to show you based on the the different roles that you have in GP, what tasks they have access to, etc. And then we even have GP user roles, so it'll show you what users have what roles in the system. And then if you look at the GP user role access, it's going to show you what users have access to, which roles, and then all the way down to the task level. So this report takes a little bit to render because it is quite a large report. I'm just going to give it a second here. And of course today it decides that it wants to take much longer than it normally does. Okay, and so now that it's rendered, you can see that this report is very, very granular. You have each user ID, the company that they have access to, the role that they have access to, and then all the tasks encompassed in those roles. So if you wanted to start filtering this out, so I'm just going to filter out on, let's say, Cindy, who is Cindy Chan, but let me spell her name right here. I could start doing some filters there, and then I only want to see her access for Chicago Cubs. And if I do that, I can filter it out even further. And when I do that, now you'll see my rows went from like 500,000 down to about 9,000, because that's all of the different windows that she has access to with the AP clerk role that I've given her. Now, keep in mind, I mean, this report seems really, really cumbersome, but we are in the demo machine using the GP out-of-the-box roles. And the GP out-of-the-box roles are very, very permissive, okay? Typically, you guys should be having your own custom roles for your organization, and they should be a lot less permissive. If you're not, if you're kind of just using the GP out-of-the-box roles, or you're kind of using the CNV roles, for those of you who've upgraded from versions 9 and below to 10 and 2010 and have those pesky CNV roles out there, this is a good tool to kind of help you do help you do a review of what kind of access you have and want to start considering building some better roles, etc. Now, these are just some of the tools, like I said, the reports that we have. But if we look at some of the other features of Assure, the first one that I really like to show is form access. So a lot of times auditors will come in and they'll say, hey, who has access to vendor maintenance? And like I said, in GP, you have to, say, okay, well, vendor maintenance is the window, these are the tasks, these are the roles, so now I have to find the users that have these roles, and it can be a little bit cumbersome. Here, all you have to do actually is just find the form name. So we can even start typing it. So if we look at vendor maintenance and I click go, it's going to tell me immediately who has access to the vendor maintenance window. And for those of you who are on GP 2013, there's even a column type here that tells you the user type. So if it's a full or a limited user, you would know that they only had read-only access. A full user, they would have full access. Okay, and if you selected a user, it even tells you how they're gaining access in this details window here on the right side, how they're gaining access to that window. So for example, if I was to select Brian Erlacher, he is gaining access to the vendor maintenance form from the role accounting manager and the task name maintain vendors and addresses. Whereas if I clicked on Danica, Danica is getting access from the accounts payable clerk role. Okay, and the same task, it's just housed within a different role. I could do, and again, any one of these reports I can print, I can export. So if my auditors are asking me for this and I just want to shoot them something in Excel or just a printed copy, I can do that. Let's say they're asking me for a bunch of different forms though. Does that mean that I have to go to each form individually and hit print or export, go to the next one, do print or export, go to the next one, etc., and kind of cobble together all these different pieces? No, we have what we call critical access. And if we click on Customize Critical Access up here on my ribbon bar, what we'll notice is this is just a, we can create groups of forms, so I can give it a group name, and I can select all the forms that are available in GP and slide them over using my buttons here to create a group. And if you notice in the drop-down list here, the type, so if we have third-party products installed, we would see those here too, and we can use those we could see those forms as well. So we're not limited to strictly a base GP install. We do see the third-party tools and the windows that come with the third-party tools. Okay. And so when we create our groups now, instead of going to Form Access, we click on Critical Access in this menu on the left-hand side and select a group. I'm going to choose my group called Audit. Oops. Click here and then click Go. And now I see all the different forms in my group, who has access to them. So I could just print or export this and give this to the auditors instead of having to do it each individually. And you'll see that this has taken me no time at all. If I was to look up that list of 10 or 12 forms in GP individually, it would probably have taken me about an hour. Okay, and here it's taken me all of, if I had to build the group from scratch and everything, I would say maximum 7 minutes. So really powerful, really easy, really quick way of looking at your GP security and seeing who has access to it. Okay, but the heart and the soul of the Assure tool is our conflict listing. So a conflict listing is, very simply put, we take a look at a base GP install, okay? And that base GP install encompasses GL, AR, AP, SOP, POP, inventory, HR, payroll. Okay, so all the basic modules. And what we do is we look and we say, we go through window by window and we say, okay, if you have this window in combination with this other window, this is a potential risk. If you have the same window in combination with this other window, this is the risk, etc. And we go through the whole system like that. And so we've come up with about 234, 227, I don't know the exact, I think about 235 out of the box conflicts that can possibly exist in GP. Okay, so if we look at some of them, what is a conflict? Well, if you have access to account maintenance and you have access to any one of the journal entry transactions, be it quick journal entry or clearing entry or transaction entry, you could potentially maintain a fictitious account and create erroneous posting entries. If you had access to series posting along with any of the journal transactions, you could potentially create inappropriate or fictitious journal entries and post them to the general ledger without proper review, etc., etc. And we go through the whole system like that, coming up with all of these conflicts. If we look at some of the high-level conflicts, if you had access to cash receipts entry and you had access to bank transaction entry, it could potentially allow users to hide cash transactions posted and cash transactions collected. Okay? And again, we could continue down the list just like this and seeing all the conflicts. And the way that these conflicts work is we can apply them now to the users that have security to the system to see how many conflicts exist within a specific user and are the conflicts appropriate or not. So for example, I'll go ahead and pick Cindy Chan since we've been working with her a lot. We know Cindy is our AP clerk. We know I've given her the role of AP clerk within the Config AD tool. So in doing so, I've created 26 conflicts for Cindy. Okay. Now, that number of how many conflicts she has isn't really important in the grand scheme of things. And the reason why I say that is, sure, if Cindy had 250 235 conflicts, yeah, Obviously, she's got access to the entire system pretty much. So we need to take a look at that, and does Cindy really have access? Definitely, we definitely need to make some changes. But in the grand scheme of things, that number is only important when you look at the types of conflicts as a whole. So for example, she has 26 conflicts, but if we look at these conflicts, they're all centered around the AP. I don't see any conflicts that are existing here that aren't centered around the AP process. Okay, so that right there is telling me she is the AP clerk, so maybe these conflicts are appropriate for her. The auditors are not looking for zero conflicts. They understand that you can't hire one person to press a button all day long. What they're looking for is how you're managing these conflicts. So again, these 26 conflicts, maybe they're excessive, maybe there's too many, maybe as we look through these windows, there are certain windows that Cindy should not have access to and we can change them. But maybe the others are appropriate and we just want to document how we're mitigating that risk. So for example, Cindy has access to, vendor maintenance and payables transaction entry. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click the proposed here. It's going to open up a mitigate window. And again, it's just going to reiterate the conflict ID, the conflict description, the two windows that create the conflict. And it's just going to say all payables transactions are batched, and batch must be approved by a supervisor before posting. Okay, so even though Cindy can create payables transactions, we're saying that she actually cannot post them. Okay, or she can post them, but there's a batch approval process. They use the approval password on the batch, and the supervisor is the only one that knows that password that can put it in so that Cindy can post. Okay, if Cindy had this access in other companies, we could go ahead and mitigate this. These mitigations and resolutions that we have here, okay, are user defined, so you can set up as many as you want. The same thing with the statuses. These are all user defined. You can actually restrict statuses to certain people. So for example, if you want to go through and review all of your conflicts and you wanted to say, I have my AP manager is going to review my AP related conflicts. My AR manager is going to go through and review my AR related conflicts. My controller is going to review anything else that's GL related. But they're only going to have the ability to either say that it's under further review or it's proposed. The only person that's going to allow a mitigation to be approved is my internal auditor, who's going to be in charge of doing the secondary reviews. Okay, you can do that. You can limit who has access to certain things. So I'm just going to leave it in proposed. I'm going to click save. Okay, and that's how these mitigations work. Now there are ways so that you don't have to go through. If you have the same conflict for another user, you don't have to mitigate it manually the same, every single time for every user. If we click here, there's a tab called Similar Mitigations, and we can see how this was mitigated for any other user that has that same access, and we can just copy that in. We can select one of these mitigations and it will copy it into the system. Okay, so therefore we don't have to type the same thing over and over if we have 10 users doing the same tasks. We can just copy the mitigations from one user to the next. So I'm going to stop here. We have about 4 minutes left in the webinar just to see if there's any additional questions or questions that I can answer. And I'm going to put up my contact slide one more time. So just go right here to this. And if there's any questions at all, please let me know.
And Liz, I'm not seeing any, and but I would be glad to unmute anybody that would like to we don't have to do them written if you'd like, because again, it's a small group. But I don't see any hands raised. I might say that Fastpath, if any of you all are attending Convergence this year, oh, Marcia has one. She has a question, yay. Oh, she just said very interested. She's very complimentary. Thanks. Fastpath is a presenter at the Expo at Convergence this year. They are every year. So if any of you guys are attending Convergence, which is just a great Microsoft event, please go into the Expo and go by and meet Liz in person.
Yep, we're going to be
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
Liz, go ahead.
We're going to be in booth 2315. We're a gold sponsor, so you should see us. We have a pretty big booth, so definitely stop by and say hi.
Well, yeah, I hope maybe if you all haven't been, if you don't go this year, it is in Atlanta. It's every March, typically in March. I think one time it's been in April, but it's been in San Diego and Dallas and Atlanta and New Orleans last year, which was really fun. So it's just a great event if you get the opportunity to go. I hope you will. Any follow-up, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Liz or myself or your account manager. I'm the account manager for the Western region. If any of you are out in the California area, please just send your questions to me. And we really appreciate your time today. Again, I have worked with Liz a lot of years, and I mentioned this in the very beginning. I'm not sure who all was on, but Liz was one of the very first end users for Fastpath, and then through the years she ended up going to work for them. So I know that she has a personal passion for the product. So Liz, I really appreciate your time today, and I hope it was beneficial for everyone.
Thank you. And Nancy, I will be sending you an email with that GRC audit, the GRC day information if anybody is interested in attending. Like I said, we have a coupon code for Associates users for $100 off the registration fee, and you do get CPE credits. I think it's only a $99 registration fee after the coupon code, and you get 4 CPE credits for the day. So I know sometimes
how long is the event, Liz?
It's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Stats in Atlanta, so it's going to be fun. It's actually we're doing it at a sports bar, so you can see how we like to mix business and pleasure at Fastpath. We like to have fun. We don't like to make auditing is boring enough as it is. So hopefully, if you guys are in Atlanta and can come out, it will be a fun day. And I'm going to send Nancy that information.
Yeah, and just another side note, Andy Snook, who is the principal at Fastpath, he's really very well written, and you'll see a lot of blogs by him just out in the Microsoft world. He's he's very well thought of in our channel. So you might even check out again some of his information out there on auditing. Again, it's Andy, S-N-O-O-K. So again, you guys have a great day, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.